A profound silence fell over the room when the young woman calmly pulled out the chair at the head of the table and settled into the seat that everyone knew belonged to the wife. She wore a serene smile as though her presence there was the most natural thing in the world, while the wife herself stood only a few feet away, clutching a folded napkin in hands that trembled visibly. Her husband offered no words. His mother deliberately looked elsewhere. But then an elderly woman at the far end of the table slowly rose to her feet, and the words she shouted next stopped every person in that mansion cold. Before we go any further, if you believe that kindness, loyalty, and the power of second chances can truly transform a life, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear this story, and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps us bring more heartfelt narratives like this one to you. For 6 full years, Elena had held the conviction that marriage meant standing beside someone through every storm life threw their way. She had married Daniel when neither of them possessed much of anything. They rented a cramped apartment, shared a single aging car, and marked their first anniversary with a dinner cooked at home because dining out was simply beyond their means. Elena never uttered a word of complaint. When Daniel launched his company, she spent countless late nights at home helping him sort through invoices, responding to emails, and offering encouragement every time investors turned him down. Gradually, everything shifted. His business took off, their modest apartment gave way to a sprawling mansion, and the simple man Elena had married transformed into a wealthy entrepreneur whose name began appearing in newspapers. But as Daniel's fortune multiplied, the gap between him and Elena expanded even more rapidly. At first, Elena attributed the growing distance to the crushing pressure of his work. Then came the late nights that stretched into early mornings, the meetings he could never quite explain, and the endless string of convenient excuses. Daniel stopped asking how her day had gone. He stopped noticing when exhaustion lined her face. Eventually, Elena unearthed the truth. There was another woman named Vanessa, younger and brimming with confidence, who had become a familiar face at Daniel's business functions. Elena discovered photographs of the two of them together and messages that left no room for doubt or denial. Her heart shattered, yet she refrained from making a scene. She simply posed one question to Daniel, whether their marriage still held any meaning for him. Daniel could not summon an answer. That silence cut deeper than any confession ever could. Elena remained in the mansion for one compelling reason: Daniel's grandmother, Margaret. The elderly woman had always regarded Elena as a granddaughter rather than a mere in-law. While everyone else sang praises of Daniel's success, Margaret remembered who had stood firmly beside him when he possessed nothing. She noticed Elena's sorrow long before anyone else did. But Margaret had recently been recuperating from an illness, and Elena refused to walk away from her. Every morning, Elena brought her breakfast, organized her medications, and sat with her during moments of loneliness. Then came the family dinner that would alter everything. Daniel had invited relatives and several key business associates to the mansion. Elena spent the afternoon assisting the staff in preparing the dining room. She arranged fresh flowers, inspected the table settings, and ensured Margaret's favorite dishes were ready. She still nursed a quiet hope that perhaps Daniel would finally speak to her with honesty. Instead, when the guests began arriving, Vanessa swept through the front doors wearing an elegant dress and carrying herself as though she already belonged to the family. Elena's stomach tightened with dread. Daniel greeted Vanessa without a hint of embarrassment. He introduced her to several guests as someone who had been assisting with the company. No one truly believed the excuse, yet no one challenged him either. Elena quietly stepped aside. She had learned that humiliation often cut deeper when you fought it in front of strangers. When dinner was announced, everyone moved to take their seats. Elena approached the chair beside Daniel, the place she had occupied for 6 years. Before she could sit, Vanessa walked over, pulled the chair out, and claimed it for herself. The room went painfully quiet. Vanessa looked at Elena with a small, deliberate smile. Then she casually reached for her glass as though nothing out of the ordinary had happened. Daniel glanced toward Elena but remained silent. His silence communicated everything. For a moment, Elena felt as though the entire mansion had fallen away beneath her feet. She gazed at the chair where she had once marked birthdays, anniversaries, and Daniel's greatest triumphs. She remembered sitting there when they received their first major business contract. She remembered Daniel holding her hand under the table because he was nervous. She remembered all those nights when she believed they were building a shared future. Now another woman occupied her place. Elena lowered her eyes and turned to walk away. That was when Margaret's chair scraped loudly against the floor. The elderly woman stood with surprising strength. Her face was pale, yet her eyes burned with intensity. Everyone turned toward her. Margaret fixed her gaze on Vanessa and pointed at the chair. "Get up." Vanessa's smile evaporated. Margaret's voice reverberated through the entire dining room. She reminded everyone that the chair had never been just a piece of furniture. It stood for the woman who had supported Daniel when he had nothing. It belonged to the person who had sacrificed quietly without seeking applause. Then Margaret turned toward Daniel. She demanded to know where he had been when Elena worked nights helping him build his company. Where was Vanessa when Elena sold her jewelry to cover the company's early expenses? Where was Vanessa when Daniel's first major deal collapsed and he came home convinced he had failed? Elena had been present through every single one of those moments. Daniel's expression shifted. He had forgotten, not because the memories had faded, but because success had made him too comfortable to recall them. Vanessa finally rose from the chair, but Margaret was not finished. She told Daniel that wealth could buy a larger house, expensive cars, and lavish dinners, but it could never restore a person's dignity once it had been destroyed. Elena's eyes filled with tears. She expected Daniel to defend himself. Instead, he walked toward her and confessed that he had been selfish. He admitted that he had confused success with happiness and attention with love. He apologized, but Elena did not immediately forgive him. She told him something everyone in that room needed to hear. Forgiveness was not the same as forgetting. She had spent years giving away pieces of herself to protect their marriage. She would not spend the rest of her life proving she deserved respect. Daniel finally understood that the woman standing before him was not the quiet wife he had taken for granted. She was the person who had helped build the life he was now jeopardizing. The next morning, Elena packed a small suitcase and left the mansion, not because Margaret had told her to, and not because Daniel had demanded it, but because she had finally realized that choosing herself was not an act of cruelty. Months passed. Daniel began therapy, stepped away from the company for a time, and started rebuilding the trust he had broken. He did not expect Elena to return quickly. Instead, he learned to respect her boundaries. Margaret remained close to Elena and encouraged her to build a life that truly belonged to her. Eventually, Elena started her own small foundation dedicated to helping women who had sacrificed their careers and dreams for their families. Daniel supported the foundation without asking for anything in return. 1 year later, Elena returned to the mansion for Margaret's birthday. The dining room looked almost exactly as she remembered. The flowers were arranged beautifully. The table was covered with fine dishes, and there was the same chair. Daniel stood beside it, but this time he did not pull it out for Vanessa. He pulled it out for Elena, then stepped back. Elena looked at Margaret. The old woman smiled. Elena sat down, not because she was reclaiming a place, but because she had finally recognized something far more important. Her worth had never come from a chair. It had never come from a husband. It had never come from a mansion. Her worth had been there all along. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Sometimes the strongest people are the ones who quietly endure until they finally find the courage to choose themselves. And before you go, comment "I choose dignity" if you believe everyone deserves respect, loyalty, and a second chance, but never at the cost of their self-worth. Because sometimes the most powerful moment in a person's life is not when someone finally chooses them. It is when they finally choose themselves.